Assalamu alaikum class. So here is our introduction to carbohydrates part 2, and in this lecture we will have a discussion about disaccharides and polysaccharides. We will look at their monomeric units, how they are arranged structurally, and what are some common examples of disaccharides and polysaccharides in our daily life. And we will also discuss their importance. So, as I explained in my previous lectures, sugars, also called saccharides, are compounds containing an aldehyde or a ketone group or two or more hydroxyl group. Monosaccharides generally contain several chain carbons and therefore exist in a variety of stereochemical forms, which may be represented on paper as Fischer projection. Apamers are the sugars that differ in configuration at only one carbon atom. Monosaccharides commonly form internal hemiacetal or hemiketals in which the aldehyde or ketone group joins with the hydroxyl group of the same molecule, creating a cyclic structure, and that can be represented on paper with the help of a Hayward's formula. The carbon atom originally found in the aldehyde or ketone group, which is the anomeric carbon, can assume either two conformation, and these two conformation are interconvertible by the process of nucleation. And in the linear form, which is in equilibrium with the cyclized form, the anomeric carbon can easily be oxidized. A hydroxyl group of one monosaccharide can add to the anomeric carbon of a second monosaccharide to form an acetyl. In this disaccharide, the glycosidic bond protects the anomeric carbon from the process of oxidation. Disaccharides such as maltose, lactose, and sucrose consist of two monosaccharides which are joined together covalently by the help of a O-glycosidic bond, which is formed when a hydroxyl group of one sugar reacts with the anomeric carbon of the other group. As you can see in this figure, in which two glucose units, one is alpha D glucose and the other one is beta D glucose, they are being linked together by the process of condensation to form a maltose molecule. Now, this O-glycosidic bond, which is formed when a hydroxyl group of one sugar reacts with the anomeric carbon of the other one. Now, this reaction represents the formation of an acetyl from a hemiacetal, such as a glucopyranose, and an alcohol, which is a hydroxyl group of the second sugar molecule. The glycosidic bonds are readily hydrolyzed by acid, but they resist cleavage by the base. Thus, we can say that disaccharides can be hydrolyzed to yield their free monosaccharide compounds by boiling with the dilute acids. And glycosyl bond join the anomeric carbon of a sugar to the nitrogen atom in the glycoprotein and in nucleotide. The oxidation of a sugar anomeric carbon by the copper or ferric ion, cupric or a ferric ion, the reaction that defines a reducing sugar, occurs only in the linear form and it exists in equilibrium with the cyclic form. When the anomeric carbon is involved in glycosidic bond, that sugar residue cannot take the linear form and therefore becomes a non-reducing sugar. Now, in describing the disaccharides of the polysaccharide, the end of a chain with free anomeric carbon, which is the one which is not involved in glycosidic bond, it is commonly called as the reducing end. The disaccharide maltose, as you can see in this figure, contains two D-glucose residues joined by a glycosidic linkage between carbon number 1 and which is the anomeric carbon of one glucose residues with the carbon number 4 of the other residue, which you can see marked with the red arrow. Because the disaccharide retains a free anomeric carbon at carbon number 1, maltose is therefore a reducing sugar. The configuration of the anomeric carbon atom in the glycosidic linkage is alpha. The glucose residue with the free anomeric carbon is capable of existing in alpha and beta pyranose form. Now, to name reducing disaccharides such as maltose unambiguously and especially to name more complex oligosaccharides, there are certain rules that we need to follow. By convention, the name describes the compound with its non-reducing end to the left, and we can build up the name following the same order. Now, first of all, we give the configuration, the first part in the name, whether it is alpha or beta, at the anomeric carbon joining the first monosaccharide unit on the left to the second one. The name of a non-reducing residue to distinguish 5 and 6 member ring structures, and therefore we are going to insert, whether if it's a 5 ring structure or a 6 ring structure, we will insert a furano or a pyrano into the name. Third, we will indicate the parenthesis, the two carbon atoms which are joined by the glycosidic bond with an arrow, and that's going to connect the two numbers. For example, if we have 1 with an arrow with a 4 written next to it, it shows that carbon number 1 of the first named sugar residue is joined to the carbon number 4 of the second residue. Okay, now to name the second residue, we use this process, and if there is a third residue involved, we describe the second glycosidic bond by the same convention. To shorten the description of the complex polysaccharide, the three-letter abbreviation for the monosaccharides are often used. Okay, now following this convention for naming the oligosaccharide, maltose is therefore, by using this convention, we can name it as alpha D glucopyranosyl 1,4 D glucopyranose, because most sugars encountered in the in this series of lectures, they are all like D enantiomers and pyranose form of the hexose and hexoses. Predominantly, we are generally going to use this version of nomenclature for formally naming all those compounds, and giving the configuration of the anomeric carbon, and naming the carbons joined by the glycosidic bond. Therefore, in this abbreviation nomenclature, maltose is GLC, which is the short form or three-word letter for the first unit, first glucose unit, and then alpha, which is the configuration, carbon number 1 linked with carbon number 4, and then the other monomeric unit. Now here we have some examples of some common disaccharides. First of all, we have sugar, the sugar that is found in the milk, that's a disaccharide, and it's named as lactose. Now lactose is a large sugar molecule that is made up of like two similar sugar molecules, glucose and galactose. In order for lactose to be absorbed from the intestine and into the body, it must be first split or hydrolyzed into D-glucose and D-galactose. The disaccharide lactose, the anomeric carbon of the glucose residue is available for oxidation, and thus lactose is a reducing disaccharide. And you can see its abbreviation, that is galactose beta 1,4 glucose unit. Now, another example of disaccharide is sucrose, which is a common table sugar. It is also a disaccharide molecule which is composed of two monomeric units. We have glucose and fructose. Sucrose is produced naturally in the plant, from which we just take it and then we refine it and use it as table sugar. It has a molecular formula of C12H22O11. For human consumption, sucrose is actually extracted and refined from either sugarcane or sugar beet. Animals are not able to make or synthesize sucrose. In contrast to maltose and lactose, sucrose contains no free anomeric carbon atom. The anomeric carbon of both monosaccharide units are involved in the glycosidic bond, as you can see in this figure. Now, sucrose is therefore a non-reducing sugar. Non-reducing disaccharides, as I told you, are named as glycosides, and in this case, the position joined are the anomeric carbons. Now, in the abbreviated nomenclature, a double-headed arrow connects the symbol which specifies the anomeric carbon and their configuration. For example, the abbreviation for the sucrose is written as galactose, which is linked with alpha 1 to beta fructose unit, or fructose beta 2,1 alpha glucose unit. Now, sucrose is a major intermediate product of photosynthesis, and in many plants, it is the principal form in which sugar is transported from the leaves to the other parts of the body. Then we have another example of a common and important disaccharide that is called trehalose. Trehalose, it's actually derived from a Turkish word which is called trihala, which means a sugar derived from the cocoons of the insects. Now, this trehalose is a sugar which consists of two molecules of glucose. It is also known as mycose, or there's another name for that. It's tremulose. Yeah, tremulose. Now, some bacteria, fungi, and plants, and into invertebrate animals are able to synthesize it as a source of energy and survive in extreme conditions, such as in drought and freezing conditions. Trehalose, it has a alpha 1 alpha linkage between its monomeric units, and like sucrose, it is also a non-reducing sugar, and it is a major constituent of the circulating fluid of the insect, which is also called hemolymph, and therefore it serves as an energy storage compound in the insects. Most carbohydrates found in nature occur as polysaccharides, which are the polymers of medium to high molecular weight. Polysaccharides, also called the glycans, differ from each other in the identity of their reducing monosaccharide units and in the length of their chains, and also in the type of the bonds linking the units, and also in the degree of branching. We have two classes of these polysaccharides. We have homopolysaccharides and heteropolysaccharides. Homopolysaccharides contain only a single type of monomer, whereas heteropolysaccharides contain more than two different types of monomers. Some homopolysaccharides serve as storage form of the monosaccharide that are used as fuel. For example, starch and glycogen are good examples of homopolysaccharides. Other homopolysaccharides such as cellulose and chitin, for example, they would serve a structural element. They would have a structural role to play in the plant cell wall and also in animal exoskeleton. Heteropolysaccharides provide extracellular support for the organisms of all the kingdom. For example, the rigid layer of the bacterial cell envelope, which is called peptidoglycan, is composed in part of the heteropolysaccharide built from two alternating monosaccharide units. In case of animal tissue, the extracellular space is occupied by these several types of heteropolysaccharides, which form a matrix that hold individual cells together and provide protection, shape, and support to the cells and tissues and organs. Now, unlike protein, polysaccharides generally do not have a definite molecular weight. This difference is a result of the mechanism of assembly of the two polysaccharide synthesis, two types of polymers. Proteins, are synthesized on a template messenger RNA, and this messenger RNA then is translated, and it has a defined sequence and a certain length. And by the help of enzymes, this follows a certain order in which the template is exactly copied. But for the polysaccharide synthesis, there is no template. Rather, the program for the polysaccharide synthesis is intrinsic to the enzyme that catalyze the polymerization of the monomeric units, and there is also no specific stopping point in the synthesis of the polysaccharide units. The most important storage polysaccharides are starch in plants and glycogen in case of animal cells. Now, both these polysaccharides occur intracellularly as large clusters or granules, as you can see on the in the grayscale image on A and B on the left side of your slide. Starch and glycogen molecules are heavily hydrated because they have many exposed hydroxyl groups available to hydrogen bond with water. Most plant cells have the ability to form starch, but it is especially abundant in tubers such as potatoes and in the seeds. Starch contains two types of glucose polymers, amylose and amylopectin. You can see them on the right side of the slide. The former consists of long, unbranched chains of D-glucose residues connected by alpha 1 fold linkage. Such chains vary in molecular weight from a few thousand to like more than a million. Amylopectin also has a higher molecular weight, about up to 100 million, but unlike amylose, it is highly branched. Now, the glycosidic linkage joining successive glucose residues in amylopectin chain has one-fold linkage. The branch proteins and these points are occurring like every 24 to 30 residues, and they are alpha 1,6 and the alpha 1,6 linkages. While in case of glycogen, which is the main storage polysaccharide of the animal cell, like amylopectin, it also is a polymer of alpha 1,4 linked subunits of glucose with like alpha 1,4 linkage, linking branches, but glycogen is more extensively branched. On average, we can say that there are like after every 8 to 12 residues, and they are more compact as compared to starch. Glycogen is especially abundant in the liver, in the hepatocytes, where it may constitute like more than 7% of the total weight, and it is also present in the skeletal muscles. In the case of the liver cells of the hepatocyte, glycogen is found in large granules, which you can see in the electron micrograph and the image B on the left side. And these large granules are themselves clusters of small granules composed of single highly branched glycogen molecules with an average molecular weight of about several millions. Now, such glycogen granules also contain in a tight bonded form the enzyme which is responsible for the synthesis and degradation of glycogen. Because each branch in the glycogen ends up with a non-reducing sugar unit, a glycogen molecule has many non-reducing end and it has branches, but only one reducing end. When glycogen is used as a source of energy, glucose units are removed one at a time from the non-reducing end. Degradative enzymes that act only at the non-reducing end can work simultaneously on many branches, speeding the conversion of the polymer of the glycogen to its monosaccharide glucose units. Thing that comes to our mind while discussing the glycogen is that why can't our body just store glycogen in the form of its monomeric form like glucose? Well, it has been calculated that hepatocytes, the cells of our liver, store glycogen equivalent to a glucose concentration of about zero point 0.4 molar. The actual concentration of the glycogen, which is insoluble and contributes little to the osmolarity of the cytosol, is about zero point zero 0.01 molar. If the cytosol contained zero point 0.4 molar glucose, the osmolarity would be like threatening and it would be very high, leading to osmotic entry of the water that might rupture the cells, the liver cells. Furthermore, with a intercellular glucose concentration of about zero point 0.4 molar and an external concentration of about 5 millimolar, which is the concentration of the glucose in the blood of the mammals, the free energy change of the glucose uptake into the cell against this will be very high concentration gradient, and therefore it's going to be prohibitively like very large. Dextrin, which is also a kind of polysaccharides, are bacterial and yeast polysaccharides, which are made up of linked poly D glucose units, and all have alpha 1,3 branches, and some also have alpha 1,2 or 1,4 branches. Dental plaque formed by the bacteria grown on the surface of the teeth is rich in dextrin. Synthetic dextrins are used in several commercial products, for example, in cosmetics that serves in the fractionation of proteins by size exclusion chromatography, as you can see on the right side of this slide. The dextrin in these products are chemically cross-linked to form insoluble materials of various porosities emitting macromolecules of various sizes to pass through it. Cellulose, a fibrous tough water insoluble substance, is found in the cell wall of plants, particularly in the stalk, stem, trunks, and all the woody portion of the plant's body. Cellulose contains much of the mass of the wood, and cotton is almost purely cellulose. Like amylose and main chains of amylopectin and glycogen, the cellulose molecule is a linear molecule. It is unbranched homopolysaccharide consisting about 10,000 to 15,000 D-glucose unit. But there is a very important difference. In the cellulose, the glucose residues have the configuration, whereas in amylose, amylopectin and the glycogen and the glucose is in the other configuration. The glucose residues in the cellulose are linked by the beta 1,4 glycosidic bond, in contrast to the alpha 1,4 bond of the amylose, starch, and glycogen. The difference gives cellulose and amylose very different structural and physical properties. Glycogen and starch ingested in the diet are hydrolyzed by enzyme amylase, which is present in the saliva and in the intestinal tract as well. Now, the secretions that break the alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond between the glucose unit are also present within our gut. Now, most animals cannot use cellulose as a fuel or source of energy. They cannot digest it because they lack this enzyme to hydrolyze the beta 1,4 linkage. Now, we have an example of termites that readily digest cellulose and therefore they rot the wood, but only because their intestinal tract has a symbiotic microorganism, and that microorganism can secrete cellulase enzyme, which hydrolyzes the beta 1,4 linkage. The wood rot fungi and bacteria also produce this same cellulase enzyme. Chitin, which is another example of the polysaccharide, is a linear homopolysaccharide composed of N-acetylglucosamine residues in the linkage as shown here. Now, the only chemical difference from the cellulose is the replacement of the hydroxyl group at carbon number 2 with an acetylated amino group. Now, chitin forms extended fibers similar to those of the cellulose, and like cellulose, it cannot be digested by the vertebrates. Therefore, if you eat an insect, you won't be able to digest it. Anyway, so chitin is the principal component of the hard exoskeleton of nearly a million species of arthropods, insects, lobster, and crabs, for example, and is probably the second most abundant polysaccharide next to cellulose in the nature. The rigid component of bacterial cell wall is a heteropolymer of alternating beta 1,4 linked N-acetylglucosamine and N-acetylmuramic acid residues. Now, the linear polymers lie side by side in the cell wall, cross-linked by a short peptide, the exact structure of which depends on the type of the bacterial species. The peptide cross links held by the polysaccharide chains into they join them together into a strong sheath that envelops the entire cell and prevents cellular swelling and lysis due to osmotic entry of the water. The enzyme lysozyme kills the bacteria by hydrolyzing this beta 1,4 glycosidic bond between N-acetylglucosamine and N-acetylmuramic acid. Lysozyme is notably present in tears, presumably as a defense mechanism to protect our eyes from bacterial infection. It is also produced by certain bacterial viruses to ensure their release from the host bacterial cells, an essential step for the viral infection cycle. Penicillin and related antibiotics kill bacteria by preventing synthesis of the cross links, leaving the cell wall too weak to resist osmotic lysis. Now, certain marine red algae, including some of the seaweeds, have cell wall that contain agar. That's a mixture of sulfated heteropolysaccharides made up of D-galactose and L-galactose derivatives, either which are linked with the carbon number 3 or carbon number 6. The two major components of the agar are unbranched polymer of agarose and a branched component, agropectin. The remarkable gel forming property of the agarose make it useful in biochemistry laboratories. When a suspension of agarose is made in water and it is heated and then it is cooled, the agarose formed a double helix. Now, these two molecules in parallel orientation twist together with the helix repeat of the three residues. Water molecules are trapped in the central cavity, and these structures in turn associate with each other to form a gel. Now, this gel, which is a three-dimensional matrix, it traps large amount of water. Agarose gels are used as inert support for the electrophoretic separation of the nucleic acids, DNA, which is an essential part of the DNA sequencing processes in biochemistry laboratories. Agar is also used to form surface for the growth of the bacterial colonies in microbial laboratories. Another commercial use of the agar is for the capsules in which some vitamins and drugs are packaged. They are dried form of the agar and they would dissolve readily when they reach our stomach and they are metabolically inert.